changement de plan, Viper avait parfaitement accompli la première partie de sa mission. Mettre Maxence à terre avant de lui asséner le coup de grâce. Le mercenaire questionnait rarement ses commanditaires sur leur motivation, mais il se demandait ce qu'avait pu faire ce jeune homme débarqué à Sydney quelques mois plus tôt pour susciter autant de haine de la part de son prestataire. Il n'obtint comme réponse qu'une réponse sèche et lapidaire. Il nous a dépossédés de quelque chose qui nous revenait de droit, c'est tout. Vous n'avez rien à savoir de plus. Maxence alerta finalement Russell, qui a couru hors d'haleine pour essayer de le consoler. À Rawson, Esteban n'était pas joignable. La messagerie de son téléphone se déclenchait dès la première sonnerie et ses appels sur WhatsApp et Messenger restaient sans réponse. Maxence ignorait que quelques heures plus tôt, une sévère dispute avait eu lieu entre son oncle et Wayne, au point de le laisser lui aussi hagard et sans réaction.
As a financial professional, your clients expect you to know everything about, well, everything. After all, they know there's news about the market. As a financial professional, your clients expect you to know.
Said during the last recession that started in 2008, enrollment at the college was at its highest. Over the past year, his school has seen a 10% decrease, Kitchen said. Kitchen believes people are more concerned with safety and health during the pandemic. Both Rye and Kitchen said their colleges are working to meet the changing needs of students during the pandemic. With increased need for vaccines around the world, Montgomery College, for example, is now offering a program in medical manufacturing. The most immediate need of our community is to find employment for people who have lost jobs because of the pandemic, Rye said. Brittany Jenkins is a 21-year-old second-year student at Northwest Arkansas. She has noticed far fewer students in her classes, which are now online. As the vice president of student government, she has heard many students' concerns about paying for school. In addition to tuition, students must pay for things like books, school supplies, housing, and other living costs. Free community college, Jenkins observed, would open so many doors for so many people. 17 states in the U.S. now offer tuition-free programs for community college. Many states, including Maryland and Arkansas, provide students with last use federal student aid. This week, U.S. President Joe Biden presented a plan to provide 2 years of free community college to all Americans. The plan will also give up to $1,400 in additional assistance to lower-income students. Biden's proposal, however, will need Republican support in an evenly divided Senate. A strong supporter of free community college is First Lady Jill Biden herself. She is a longtime professor at community colleges and plans to continue during her time in the White House. I'm Katie Weaver.
Thanks, Katie.
A line way east of Moscow.
В детали
got Hollywood. They'll make sure that Biden looks like the next FDR, even though he barely speaks. If the economy keeps roaring into 2022, which by all accounts, Carl, when you pull a car to the side of the road and you start it up and moving forward, it looks much better than when it's paused on the side of the road. And now the economy is going to move, and I'm worried that people are going to get the wrong perception that it's moving in the right direction because of him. It's moving in the right direction because it's moving.
Yeah. Well, look, what's interesting to me is that his approval rating on the economy is at or below his overall approval rating. His approval rating is 53% of the Real Clear Politics average. That is the second lowest since we began modern polling. The only lower one was Donald Trump after the rather extraordinary election of 2016. So he not prepared the American people for all this stuff. And as a result, he's being held up by people feeling better about the COVID, and everybody is getting the chance to go get their vaccination. But when it comes to things like immigration and the economy, his numbers are much lower, and people are starting to get very nervous about where this is all going. I was taken with one question in a poll in which they said, would you like him to get his spending proposal, infrastructure proposal as is, or would you like him to make concessions and compromises with the Republicans, even if that reduced the overall amount of spending a lot? 60% of the American people wanted the latter. So he could only carry 40% of the country saying, yeah, he's got that great proposal. We ought to go for it. That's exactly the way it is. People want him to compromise, and he ain't compromising. He plays kabuki at it, but the only compromise is you got to compromise your principles and vote for everything that I want.
I know. So far, a couple of things going to happen. Only 200 people are in the chambers. You could get it 1,600 plus guests. And John Roberts will represent the judicial branch. That is it. You're going to have some significant misses. Tom Cotton, Josh Hawley, Marco Rubio. Among the Republicans who won't be there, McConnell and McCarthy will. They're among leadership. Scalise won't. Senators attending. Just some of the other names. There's going to be about 100 or so there. It's going to be a bizarre look. It's not going to be a well-delivered speech. He's not capable. It's probably going to be under an hour. That's true. When it comes to Tim Scott, notoriously, it's almost impossible to make an impact in that spot. In terms of content, what do you hope Senator Tim Scott talks about?
Well, I hope, one, that he makes it clear that Republicans have offered alternatives to the president's proposals and have been soundly and unceremoniously rejected thus far. But we're not going to stop. We're going to keep offering alternatives to these proposals that he's coming out with because there's a better way for America. Second of all, he needs to articulate that the Republicans have an optimistic and positive agenda for the future of the country and that they're going to be talking about it during the next year, at the same time that he's delivering, sort of responsible, thoughtful, restrained attacks on the president. You don't want him to just sort of take the kitchen sink like you and I do on the radio, but you want him to go through and make a methodical case why what President Biden is proposing is not right, and why he's leaving undone big things in our country like securing our borders. But can I touch back for just a second on one thing you mentioned? There's not going to be a crowd. We all getting vaccinated? Don't the docs for the House and Senate know exactly who's been vaccinated among the members and who hasn't?
Yep.
Well, we in Texas, our legislators in the Texas State Senate take a test each day before they walk in to the Senate. If they haven't been vaccinated, they take a test. So why is it that we have suddenly a group of anti-science people in charge of the Senate and the House in the form of Schumer and Pelosi? What is this all about? I thought we were supposed to believe in science. Why don't they believe in science?
13 states have no mask mandate. You now have Massachusetts just going to let it dissipate. It's going to go. They're going to say you can gather with 100, fewer than 1,000 to gather outside without masks. That's in Kentucky. In Massachusetts, Governor Baker's just going to let the mask mandate dissipate. In Texas, you guys sold out Arlington Stadium where the Rangers play, and there's been no surge of cases. For the UFC, it's a little early, but they've sold out 14,000 in Jacksonville. There's been no surge. Spring break, no surge. See, Carl, I was just talking about this in the A block. Normally when you come out of a recession, you got leaders saying, look, we turned the corner. Indicators show where people are shopping again and they're optimistic again, even if all the indicators aren't there. Why are they cheering for the pandemic to be extended instead of pushing us to put it behind us? What is behind this?
Well, there are two ways. One is they really are scared, and they're afraid of having anything bad go on their watch. Or the other thing is, and this is probably way over the top, too conspiratorial. Maybe they want the economic bump to happen later rather than sooner, so it's closer to the 2022 election. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. And We had one of the administration officials wringing her hands, about a rising number of deaths. Well, look, we're learning to be responsible. The last year, give the American people credit. We covied up. We took steps to keep our families healthy. A lot of governors and a lot of mayors made it a high priority to make certain that we protected the elderly who are clearly at risk from this. And made certain that when it came time for vaccinations, we did a lot of exceptional things in order to make certain that seniors got vaccinated. But for God's sake, let the science guide you. And the science, going back to what we talked about just a few moments ago, who is the nut who says to Nancy Pelosi, we can't have vaccinated members of the House and Senate on the floor of the chamber, and we can't have members who haven't been vaccinated to get tested the day of or shortly before they come into the chamber? I mean, who is telling her that you can't do that?
Nobody. I think she's doing it on her own. I don't think Nancy Pelosi tells anyone, but it's bad information. Carl, I want to bring you to something that's happening. I know the Republicans had a bit of a summit of their own, trying to find a way forward. They feel good about a lot what's going on because they feel it gives them an opportunity. And I got to ask you about Kevin McCarthy and Liz Cheney evidently clashing because Liz Cheney is indefatigable with her dissatisfaction with Trump, and Kevin McCarthy wants to keep the party together. Who's right?
Well, both of them want to keep the party together. It's just that they've got different views on how to achieve that. But they do agree on something that's really important and underreported. The Republican House leadership has now set up 7 task forces. It was led by some of the senior members and by some of the new members. Each task force is devoted to an idea, and their job is to help flesh out the Republican agenda and the messaging on that agenda. McHenry of North Carolina, jobs in the economy. We got a tremendous young member from Louisiana who's talking about energy and climate and conservation. We got Mike McCall, who represents part of the county in which I live, Travis County, who's going to be the lead on China. A guy from New York, Katko, who represents a district that Joe Biden won and that Hillary Clinton won, and yet he's the Republican congressman. His is domestic security. Jim Jordan, Americans' freedom. We got McMorris Rogers of Washington State on technology. This is important because Republicans cannot rely simply on attacking Biden. That's important. To say what we have to say about each of these proposals that he's coming out with. But we also have to have an agenda that we can take to the American people that says we're going to strive to do things that are smarter, better, common sense, and get to the place that you want to get to. And that's going to be really important to persuade those swing voters in 2020. This is going to be a check and a balance election. We need to talk about the checking. We need to check the excesses of the Democrats, but we need to provide balance with a positive and optimistic agenda that says to swing voters, hey, it's worth voting for the Republicans.
How important is it for McCarthy and Cheney to get along?
Well, it's important. And look, my sense is they get along. They got a different view on this, and they're going to get asked questions by the press, and they got to, both of them have got to find a way to downplay this and not let them, because the press wants to write that the Republican Party is at war with each other. And look, they do have different views, but they are united in their view that we must, A, stop the Biden agenda, and B, win back the control of the House by laying out a positive agenda. You would not have look, I've talked to both of them. Both of them believe that we will win in 2022 if we make this campaign not simply about what the failings of the Biden administration and all the spending on forced unionization and nationalization of our elections, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but by also laying out an agenda. And I think that is a really important thing for our leaders to be committed to. And they did so in Orlando by saying, okay, here's the next step. These 7 people are going to lead the task forces. They're going to have cobbled together members representing the diversity of our party, and we're going to be talking about ideas.
Understood. $310 million for Guatemala and other nations in that area for humanitarian aid, so they stop coming here without any strings attached saying they have to secure their own border or strings attached saying where it's got to go. Have you ever heard of a more naive pledge in your life?
This is naive. Now, let me be clear. I do believe it is important for us to support financially these countries in the so-called triangle in order to reduce the pressure on our border. But realize this, you're absolutely right. It has to be tied to specific actions, specific oversight, specific projects that are measurable and able to be monitored. And second of all, we need to do this with the understanding that it is not going to cause an immediate result. Look, I was part of an administration that worked hard to end catch and release, and it took us 3 years to do so. And there was aid to Guatemala and Nicaragua and El Salvador. But it didn't have an overnight effect. And you need to stop. The principal vehicle that will stop the attack on our border is to say, if you come here, you will be sent back. We will have physical barriers,
Simple.
including a wall that will stop you from coming here. But if you get around those or get over them or get under them, we're going to take you and return you to your country. So it's going to be wasted effort on your part. That's not the message we're sending today.
Carl, I got you fired up today. I think that I'm worried that you're not going to be able to perform if you're booked for any other show.
You know what? On the day that I come on your show, I only go on your radio program because I want to be at my best.
All right, good. I don't care what happens to the rest of the network. Carl, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy.
All right, when we come back, we find out if indeed I need to know more.
Giving you everything you need to know. It's Brian Kilmeade.
This is House Call for Health. It's World Immunization Week. The World Health Organization celebrates this in the last week of April. The focus? To promote vaccines to protect people of all ages against disease, because the WHO says they save lives every year and are one of the world's most people from COVID with new vaccines, but the WHO says it's important that routine vaccinations aren't missed for children during the pandemic, leaving them at risk for diseases like measles and polio. And they're also worried about rapidly circulating misinformation about vaccines that adds to that threat. Nearly 20 million kids globally aren't getting the vaccines they need. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
Hey, this is Trey Gowdy, host of the Trey Gowdy Podcast. Every Tuesday, you'll hear what's on my mind. Plus, every Thursday, there's a special bonus episode where we answer the questions that are on your mind. Make sure to spend your Tuesdays and Thursdays with Trey. Subscribe now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts. Hope to see you.
America's listening to Fox News. From the Fox News Podcasts Network, it's the Fox News Rundown. Start your day with a contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. A daily morning podcast going far beyond the headlines, tapping into the massive reporting resources of Fox News to provide a full picture of the news of the day.
I'm Dana Perino.
I'm Brett Baer.
I'm Jessica Tarlov.
I'm Chris Wallace, and this is the Fox News Rundown.
Listen and subscribe now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com.
Jason in the House, the Jason Chaffetz Podcast. There is a take on American life, politics, and entertainment. Join me, Jason Chaffetz, every Wednesday as I shed light on the news and make some predictions along the way. You never know who will drop in. Subscribe now on foxnewspodcast.com or
Il fait maintenant nuit noire et il va bientôt être l'heure d'aller dormir. Ce 6e épisode de la 4e saison de Freeway est terminé et vous avez pu écouter dans l'ordre de diffusion les titres suivants. Whatever You Want de Status Quo, Links So Dry Fear de Rammstein, Killed by Love du groupe FM, Breaking Down de Headpins, Wouldn't You Rather de Alter Bridge, The Best Thing de Savage Garden, Heartbeat du groupe Rabbit, All She Wants Is de Duran Duran, Down Under de Men at Work, Digging in the Dust de Peter Gabriel, Over You de Sheryl Crow, Forest Fire de Lloyd Cole and the Commotions, Heaven de Warrant, Learning to Fly de Pink Floyd, Somebody That I Used to Know de Gautier, et pour finir, To Be Reborn de Boy George. Je vous donne rendez-vous le 6 juin prochain pour la suite des aventures d'Esteban, Wayne, Maxence et Chris, sans oublier Russell, en Australie. Vous pourrez retrouver la playlist de ce soir ainsi que des extraits des textes de cet épisode sur la page Facebook de l'émission. Le podcast de cette dite émission d'ailleurs sera disponible sur la nouvelle plateforme consacrée à cet effet par Radio Métal. Il est temps de vous remercier, vous, mes auditeurs, de votre présence et de votre fidélité à l'antenne et sur le forum, avec, bien entendu, une pensée toute particulière à ceux qui me suivent depuis les débuts de Freeway, et notamment Loïc, alias Claude Vig, et Jean-Michel de Dieppe. Je n'oublie pas, bien entendu, ma famille avec ma maman et ma sœur, fidèles parmi les fidèles, ainsi que tous ceux qui découvrent Freeway ce soir. Comme d'habitude, merci à mon très précieux Olivier pour son aide, ses remarques toujours judicieuses et pertinentes, ses conseils avisés et son exigence implacable, qui me permettent chaque mois depuis septembre 2017 de vous présenter un nouveau numéro de Freeway. Je ne vais pas bien entendu oublier de saluer la mascotte de notre émission, Daniel alias Baby Fox. Et en parlant de Fox, nous vous donnons rendez-vous le mercredi 19 mai pour un nouvel épisode de Hard Rock Connection, l'avant-dernier de la saison en cours. D'ici là, je vais vous souhaiter une très bonne nuit. Dimanche prochain, ce sera l'excellent team qui sera à l'antenne pour De la poussière sur la platine. Je suis le Star Child, vous êtes sur Radio Metal et je retrouve très vite avec Fox pour Hard Rock Connection. Une nouvelle fois, bonne nuit à tous et on se quitte avec un dernier morceau des CTC, Let's Get It Up.
Location is part of what makes it among the least visited national parks. But once they arrive, most visitors stay a while. The average stay for visitors to Isle Royale National Park is 3.5 days. The average stay for visitors to most other national parks is just 4 hours.
Isle Royale offers hiking, camping, boating, and even scuba diving. The extremely cold waters of Lake Superior help keep shipwrecks in excellent condition. The National Park Service protects 11 sunken boats for divers to explore. They are reminders of Lake Superior's commercial shipping history. The sunken wooden ship called the Iberia is one of the most popular sites. The America carried passengers, mail, and supplies to many towns along the shores of Lake Superior. It first launched in 1898 and was used until 1928, when it was damaged. It sank to the bottom of the lake soon after. Today, divers can swim through the ship's ballroom, bedrooms, and engine room. The engine is an American flag. Many divers take pictures of this site.
The Rock Harbor Lighthouse is another reminder of the area's commercial history. Workers built the lighthouse in the 1850s to help guide ships safely to the island's copper mines. The mining industry was short-lived, however. The lighthouse itself lit the way for ships for just 24 years, but it still stands today. Inside, exhibits and information help visitors understand Isle Royale's maritime history. A short hiking trail leads visitors to the lighthouse. Visitors to Isle Royale share the trails.
The same responsibility, I cannot answer to you in a very objective way, is my challenge in this moment.
Французами армия генерала Галлера голубая так называемая армия. Это были польские легионеры, бывшие российские граждане, которые служили в русской армии, попали в плен во время Первой мировой войны к французам. Но они были поляками по происхождению, и они организовали там огромные вооруженные силы Франции из поляков, которые французы вооружили для борьбы с большевиками. И единственным условием было, чтобы они не подавляли национальных меньшинств, а участвовали в войне именно с большевиками. И тогда генерал Галлер, не особо блистая умом и талантом, он всегда был таким, провозгласил украинцев, белорусов и евреев большевиками. И начал борьбу прежде всего против национальных меньшинств, и эта армия была ударной силой в завоевании этих всех территорий.
Разговор с переводчиком Андреем Повышиным о книге Гжегожа Гаудена «Львов. Конец иллюзий» будет продолжен в следующем выпуске.
As effective as installing expensive filtration systems. It was once thought that pathogen-laced droplets were propelled by coughing or sneezing, but newer research says simple airflow can spread them through a room. The findings are published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Science of the United States of America. For more on the coronavirus, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
The very latest headlines, along with in-depth analysis and conversation, depend on Fox News Radio and FoxNewsPodcasts.com.
More debate on police reform expected. I'm Joe Chiro, Fox News. President Biden has told Congress he wants a police reform plan by the end of the month. South Carolina Republican Senator Tim Scott tells CBS's Face the Nation he's optimistic for a bipartisan proposal.
My friends on the left aren't looking for the issue. They're looking for a solution. And the things that I offered last year are more popular this year. That gives me reasons to be hopeful.
The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act has been passed in the House but remains stalled in the Senate. The White House remains under criticism over the surge of migrants at the U.S. border. A group of volunteers has stepped up to help the Border Patrol.
The Texas Border Volunteers have set up this network of trail cameras that are monitored by the Border Patrol and state DPS that show large groups in the deep brush trying to avoid detection. There's about 300 members, and they say they carry firearms, but they've never had to fire a shot. This is rough country. It's really hot. 25 bodies found dead in the desert, if you will, in this ranch land in just this year.
Fox's William Lajeunesse. India continues to battle a worsening COVID-19 crisis. Britain today promising an additional 1,000 ventilators. And the U.S. has been sending plane loads of supplies to India. Dr. Ashish Jha of Brown University.
From a pure public health point of view, that large of an outbreak also is fertile ground for more variants. There are just many, many reasons why we've got to be very deeply engaged in helping India get this outbreak under control.
Jha on ABC's This Week. At least 2 people were dead after a boat carrying more than 20 people capsized near San Diego. 24 people were pulled from the water and taken to hospitals. It happened off Point Loma near the Cabrillo Monument. America is listening to Fox News.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
Hey, this is Trey Gowdy, host of the Trey Gowdy Podcast. Every Tuesday, you'll hear what's on my mind. Plus, every Thursday, there's a special bonus episode where we answer the questions that are on your mind. Make sure to spend your Tuesdays and Thursdays with Trey. Subscribe now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts. Hope to see you.
America's listening to Fox News. From the Fox News Podcasts Network, it's the Fox News Rundown. Start your day with a contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. A daily morning podcast going far beyond the headlines, tapping into the massive reporting resources of Fox News to provide a full picture of the news of the day.
I'm Dana Perino.
I'm Brett Baer.
I'm Jessica Tarlov.
I'm Chris Wallace, and this is the Fox News Rundown.
Listen and subscribe now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com.
El Salvador's authoritarian president has moved to further his grip on power by ousting all judges from the top court and removing the main prosecutor. The U.S. State Department says it's gravely concerned by the moves. 4 astronauts have returned to Earth from the International Space Station. Their SpaceX capsule splashing down in the Gulf of Mexico off the Florida coast in the early morning darkness.
Over 4 Gs, 42 kilometers.
SpaceX, we have you loud and clear.
67-day mission, the longest for a crew capsule from the U.S. It was the first nighttime water landing since Apollo 8 in 1968. A revolt today against the American owners of one of the world's biggest soccer teams.
Manchester United's game against Liverpool in the English Premier League was postponed after around 200 United supporters broke into the stadium and stormed the pitch. Neither team was present. The protest centred on demands for the club's American owners, the Glazer family, who also own the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, to sell the team. Tensions have flared after United signed up for a breakaway league, only for those plans to collapse days later amid furious opposition. In London, Simon Owen, Fox News.
An extension for air travelers to get identification that meets the new Real ID standard.
The Homeland Security Department says because of the coronavirus pandemic, travelers won't need a Real ID until May of 2023. The original deadline was October 1st of this year. Motor vehicle departments throughout the country have been having a hard time keeping up because they've been operating at limited capacity. Congress passed a Real ID Act in 2005 as a way to tighten security procedures for obtaining an identification card or license after 9/11. Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
And I'm Joe Chiro, Fox News.
Приветствую всех. Это подкаст «Американские вопросы», который ведет из Нью-Йорка Юрий Жигалкин. Новый курс Байдена. Намерен ли президент Байден попытаться переустроить Америку? Как доказать преимущество американской демократии? Президент соблазняет американцев социализмом? Необычное обращение к Конгрессу президента США Джо Байдена мы обсуждаем с историком из университета Сеттон-Холл Максимом Матусевичем и правозащитником Юрием Ербагаевым. 28 апреля президент США Джо Байден выступил со своим первым обращением к Конгрессу. Эта речь сильно отличалась от подобных выступлений его предшественников, прежде всего масштабностью заявленных президентом целей и исторической параллелью, которую подчеркнул сам президент. По его называемому новому курсу, в рамках которого американское государство впервые пошло на гигантские инвестиции в инфраструктуру страны, чтобы стимулировать экономику, и впервые ввело меры социальной защиты населения, в том числе государственную пенсию по старости. Президент Байден в 2021 году предлагает американский план создания рабочих мест и план поддержки американской семьи, в рамках которых будут выделены триллионы долларов на инвестиции в инфраструктуру, так называемую зеленую экономику, бесплатные общественные колледжи, помощь семьям с детьми. Это, по словам Джо Байдена, закрепит будущее за Америкой. Заявка президента Байдена на историческую роль была встречена скепсисом республиканцами, которые видят в ней смычку президента с крайне левым крылом демократической партии, отказ от компромиссов с республиканцами. Максим Матусевич считает, что параллель с временами Великой депрессии и президентом Рузвельтом едва ли оправдана.
Смотря с чем сравнивать. Если сравнивать с Рузвельтом, то все-таки, конечно, мы говорим о Великой депрессии, мы говорим о Второй мировой войне. Эта ситуация несопоставимая. В 60-е годы, когда реформа великого общества, вот это Great Society Reforms, который Джонсон вел, в принципе, экономика была в очень неплохом состоянии. Была, конечно, война во Вьетнаме, что было, мне кажется, сопоставимо с нынешней ситуацией в 60-е годы во время реформ Джонсона. Это вот этот социальный взрыв, вопросы расовые, вопросы гендера, антивоенное движение мощное было в 60-е годы. Поэтому, мне кажется, вот сейчас реакция скорее идет на социальную составляющую, а не на экономическую. Что они пытаются сделать? Мне кажется, они пытаются сделать такой капитализм с более гуманным лицом. И, в общем-то, во мне лично это не вызывает протеста, потому что когда смотришь на то, что сделал Рузвельт, в общем-то, страна вышла из Великой депрессии, страна успешно провела войну, причем во время войны налоги же возросли до 90%. То есть это действительно в течение 4 лет была такая командная экономика в стране. Но после войны, как только кризис прошел, страна опять вошла в привычное русло. И, в общем-то, произошел период беспрецедентного процветания экономического, который продолжался до 69-80 года. Так что я не очень разделяю вот этих страхов по поводу того, что такие реформы ведут Америку к социализму. Пока что они Америку к социализму не привели, они сделали общество в какой-то степени более гуманным. Ну, что ж плохого? Например, социальное social security, да, или Medicare, Medicaid, которые в 60-е годы ввели.
То есть система государственного пенсионного страхования и медицинское страхование для пожилых людей,
которыми пользуются миллионы людей. То, что мы видим после Второй мировой войны, приходит Трумэн. Что он делает? Он вводит так называемый GI Bill, то есть вспомоществование возвращающимся солдатам, которые идут в университеты, учатся, им оплачивают полностью образование. Миллионы людей получили вот эти субсидии на образование. И, в общем, это отчасти тоже многие экономисты связывают с послевоенным процветанием, что такое количество людей получили доступ к образованию. Строительство при Айзенхауэре вот этой сети гигантской дорог по всей стране. Это же тоже правительственная огромная программа, которая, в общем-то, они сотрудничали с частным бизнесом тоже, но от этого выиграли люди, и автомобильная промышленность выиграла от этого, большой бизнес. Да, конечно, всегда есть какая-то опасность, что вот такие программы занесет очень далеко влево. Но это неизбежно, наверное. Вот на то и существуют республиканцы, чтобы помогать эти вещи балансировать. Но мне кажется просто, что когда мы смотрим на то, как конкретно были реализованы эти программы и что они сделали для общества, в результате этого я лично вижу общество, которое ни на секунду не стало социалистическим, оно продолжает быть капиталистическим, но это общество, в котором, по крайней мере, появилась возможность у людей без денег, или людей больных или пожилых жить более-менее достойно.
Некоторые комментаторы видят в речи Байдена чуть ли не попытку сбить страну с рыночного курса. Они вспоминают Рейгана и его знаменитый тезис: «Правительство не предлагает решения наших проблем, оно представляет проблему». Байден, судя по всему, готов выступить в роли антипода Рейгана. Государство решит наши проблемы.
Но государство при Рейгане тоже было очень активным. И, в общем-то, налоги были тогда на корпорации выше, чем они сейчас. Между демократами и республиканцами существуют философские разногласия о роли государства в жизни общества и в жизни экономики. Вот демократы сейчас пришли к власти, они выдвинули такой пакет инициатив. Понятно же, что в том виде, в котором они были предложены, это не будет реализовано. Это будет результатом долгих, нудных переговоров между республиканцами и демократами. То, что в результате произойдет, мы еще не знаем. С исторической точки зрения, когда я смотрю вот на все эти программы в истории Америки, особенно за последние, скажем, 80-90 лет, направленные на облегчение социального положения в стране, они, на мой взгляд, были в целом все равно успешны. И не только в стране, между прочим, есть Маршалл-план, когда огромные вливания в экономику разрушенной Европы или Японии были произведены. Америка гигантские совершенно, тоже сравнимые с тем, что Байден предлагает сейчас внутри страны, только направленные за границу.
Республиканские оппоненты президента Байдена изобличают его в том, что он и демократы пытаются соблазнить американцев социализмом, обещая преуспевание за счет корпораций самой богатой прослойки общества. Они обещают бесплатное образование, почти бесплатную медицину, отпуска по уходу за ребенком, дескать, это губительно для Америки.
А чего хочет население в этой стране? Это же не Франция, понимаете, где люди чуть что выходят на улицу и требуют там себе 25-часовой рабочей недели. Американцы, на мой взгляд, невероятно терпеливы и работоспособны. Как здесь. Я как раз не наблюдаю того, чтобы люди требовали себе бесплатного сыра в мышеловке. Люди готовы работать, люди готовы трудиться. Мне кажется, что руководит Байденом, на мой взгляд, все-таки это не желание подкупа населения и создания там какой-то политической базы демократической партии, а искреннее желание вот погасить социальную напряженность в обществе. Это вот то, как я слышал его выступление вчера. Вообще оно на меня так действовало немножко после последних сумасшедших лет, терапевтически, надо сказать. То есть там вышел такой дедушка и спокойно рассказывал, что вот женщины имели возможность ухаживать за детьми, чтобы люди не голодали. Но это же все не такие неплохие идеи. Опять же, я понимаю, что по этому поводу есть разные интерпретации. Лично я вот это страха не разделяю, потому что я на самом деле глубоко убежден в мощи американского капитализма.
Так считает Максим Матусевич. Юрий Еромагаев убежден, что Джо Байден разворачивает страну влево.
Надо сказать, что за первые 100 дней Байден сделал больше, чем кто-либо другой, и более радикально сдвинул эту страну в эту сторону. И мы можем судить как по его указам, так по двум пакетам 2 триллионов, один из которых уже прошел, второй готовится, так и по речи, которую он вчера произнес. И первое, что означает сдвиг в сторону социализма, это перераспределение доходов, искусственное перераспределение правительством, изымание этих денег с помощью увеличения налогов и перераспределений. Собственно, если мы возьмем 2 главных пакета по 2 триллиона долларов каждый, первый из которых направлен был на то, чтобы помочь нам справиться с ковидом, а второй для того, чтобы улучшить инфраструктуру, то мы увидим, что в первом пакете, собственно, средства, отпущенные на ковид, из 2 триллионов составляют не больше 1%, а во втором пакете средства на инфраструктуру составляют не больше 6%. Остальные средства идут на перераспределение доходов населения. То есть, когда вы даете по $1400 почти каждому человеку в Америке, это есть самый прямой способ перераспределения денег.
Все-таки перераспределение или поддержка в тяжелый час?
Если бы это были личные деньги Байдена, и он бы вынул их из своего кармана и всем раздал, это было бы замечательно. Но это значит, что он забрал эти деньги у тех же американцев, причем в гораздо большем количестве. А главное, что в этом не было абсолютно никакой необходимости. Большинство людей, которые получили эти деньги, никак материально ковида не пострадали. Это было сделано исключительно с одной главной целью, чтобы завоевать, конечно, популярность в массах, а главное, чтобы 400 миллиардов долларов, гигантские деньги, чтобы правительство ими стало распоряжаться. В среднем вот те пакеты, которые уже прошли, обошли средней американской семье в $53 тысячи каждая. Это сумма всех этих средств, разделенная на количество семей в Америке. А получили назад люди малую часть этих денег.
Ну, изымает это метафора. Речь идет о повышении государственного долга.
Долг, который висит на каждом из нас. Почему и на каком основании? Не спросив никого из нас. Американское правительство взяло за мой счет и на мой счет долг в 53 тысячи. Прислала мне, может быть, назад 2000 или 3000, которые я все равно должен буду отдать. А остальные деньги истратила вообще непонятно на что, опять же, меня не спрашивают.
Юрий, в американской системе спрашивают вашего представителя в Конгрессе, который голосует плохого, если государство вкладывает деньги в инфраструктуру. Дороги в Америке, как мы знаем, хорошо произносились.
Что такое проект инфраструктуры? Это второе проявление резкого ухода в социализм, потому что второй характерной чертой социализма является национализация определенных частей экономики. И вот в этой программе инфраструктур вот эта национализация, она просто выступает совершенно явным образом. Ну, во-первых, давайте скажем прямо, что из 2 триллионов предлагаемых на дороги и мосты отведено где-то 135 миллиардов. То есть это где-то 6-6,5%. Остальные деньги идут на совершенно другие вещи. И большинство из этих вещей это просто области американской экономики. Например, производство 300 миллиардов. Куда входят такие области, как полупроводниковая промышленность, другие области высокой технологии. 100 миллиардов идет на развитие интернета и так далее. Это области американской экономики, которые сами по себе существуют и прекрасно процветают без всякого правительства. У главных технологических компаний денег больше, чем у американского правительства. Почему и зачем американское правительство влазит в эти области экономики, которые самые успешные в мире? Они выделяют в этом проекте большие деньги на строительство таких исследовательских центров. Это что-то будет типа Сколково. мы знаем одно прекрасно, что чем больше доля экономики контролируется правительством, тем слабее настолько же становится экономика.
Мы вернемся к разговору с Юрием Ермагаевым через 30 секунд.
Салам алейкум, добрый день. У микрофона Маятбек Почигаев, и я представляю вам подкаст «Хроника Кавказа».
Back in a moment.
You're with Brian Kilmeade.
Hey, it's Brett Larson, inviting you to download and listen to the new daily Fox on Tech podcast. There's part of a colorful late 90s iMac on Mars. It's an idea that seems a lot like Kickstarter, called Build It. This isn't the first time we've heard about North Korea hackers trying to get a leg up on COVID-19, a range that was used for satellite TV service in the 70s. Get the latest trends in technology, cybersecurity alerts, and gadget news daily. Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now.
Now, from the historical audio archives of Fox News Talk.
Aaron Copland, who died in 1990, was an American composer of concert and film music who touched the heart of America and merged the classics with the truly American art form of jazz. As music trends were changing with the advent of rock and pop music in the 50s and 60s, Copland was open and excited about where music was headed.
If we thought that music should have...
Put their extra space to work. Like Jill from Devon.
Hello, I'm Jill. I'm a host on Airbnb. When our kids left home, we restored our barn so that we could welcome visitors here. The extra income's been brilliant. It allows me to be at home, to be a granny, and just to enjoy life.
Whatever space you have, a barn, a holiday home, or even a flat that's sometimes empty, it could bring you extra income and more flexibility. Visit airbnb.com/host and learn more about what hosting could do for you.
New Vodafone Pro broadband.
Amanda Browning lives in Lula, Georgia. She came to visit and says she never left. Amanda says she fell in love in the beginning and now owns Amanda's Farm to Fork. They are famous, she says, for her husband's fried chicken. One can afford. So outside of the restaurant sits the Blessing Box. Resident Mandy Stewart of Love Your Neighbors Ministries came up with the passion project to spread love instead of hate. It works by donations from anyone in the community who can help. Things like canned goods, toiletries, and socks are inside. It's open 24/7 and anyone can stop and get whatever they need. Thank you, Amanda and Mandy, for showing us how it's done. Janice Dean, Fox News.
Jason in the House, the Jason Chaffetz podcast. There is always someone doing something stupid somewhere. Dive deeper than the headlines and the party lines as I take on American life, politics, and entertainment. Join me, Jason Chaffetz, every Wednesday as I shed light on the news and make some predictions along the way. You never know who will drop in. Subscribe now on foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now.
I'm Ashley DeVorkin with a Fox Movie Profile and a look at new releases this week, including Mortal Kombat in theaters and HBO Max.
How does the new Mortal Kombat stay true to the game?
Yeah, well, it definitely stays true to the game in terms of being bloody and violent and hard R-rated. Keep that in mind. This is a video game adaptation, but it is not a family-friendly video game adaptation. If you are an old-school fan of the game and you want to see your favorite characters kind of really showing off their most memorable, iconic fatalities, you will get them. Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Kano, who's got a mouth and a half on him.
On Netflix is the sci-fi thriller Stowaway, following a crew en route to Mars.
When he stowed away, he damaged a part of the ship that kind of feeds their life support. And so now they only have enough oxygen for 3, and there are 4 on board. And that is going to lead to some impossible decision-making that has to happen.
Ashley DeVorkin, Fox News.
Fastest 3 hours in radio. You're with Brian Kilmeade.
When are kids going to be able to take off those masks and play outside?
Now, and for that reason, they are more at risk of getting infected because they are out in the community where there is a lot of infection. When the community level starts to go way down, the risks to everybody, including the children, is going to be dramatically diminished. You're asking now if your child is a member of your household, can you walk outdoors with your child without a mask? According to that chart, the answer is yes.
But the child can't, not to beat it to death.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Kennedy, your witness. Please help America and nicely ask Anthony Fauci to back off the stage. Kids should not be wearing masks.
What is the percentage of children who have been hospitalized and died from the coronavirus? That's what I want to know.
Less than 0.5%, 0.5%.
Yes.
So why would you destroy a kid's life? I mean, when you think about this, Alice Winston said before, the meningitis, if you get measles after you've been vaccinated, it could be very serious. Polio, the vaccine is 70% effective. We don't keep kids in closets. What's going on here?
Yes, so if the transmission of COVID-19 is less than 10% outside, and kids are hospitalized at a rate of below 0.05%, then it just makes sense that those two things go hand in hand to be outside without a mask. And
by the way, you don't want kids with a mask, period. I mean, it's definitely going to affect them psychologically, let alone, I'm pretty sure when you breathe out, there's a reason. Dr. Jay Bakatara was on with Laura Ingraham last night. Cut 42.
There's so many things wrong with what Dr. Fauci said there. So first of all, we haven't tested the vaccines on children. We have no idea what the results are going to show. He's prejudging the results before we've seen them. That's just irresponsible for a medical professional to do that. Children don't spread the disease very efficiently. We know that from a whole host of studies. I mean, it's just exhaustively documented, and he knows that. So I don't really understand why he's trying to spread fear around that. Children, when they are infected, they actually don't get very sick. The number of child deaths from COVID last year was less than the flu. More kids died last year of the flu in the United States than died of COVID. The harm from COVID to children, thank God, is way less than it harmed to the older people, who are just 1,000 times more likely to die if they get COVID.
So you're a mom as well as an anchor?
Yes.
You can be both?
You can.
Right.
Thankfully.
You didn't have to
Two good jobs.
So I'm just offended by this. And then I was on the 5 last night, and I said, what is going on here? When we're in a recession, leaders want to get you out of the recession. Even sometimes the numbers and durable goods or GDP growth are a little low. They're like, hey, we turned the corner. They're trying to cheer us out of it. So you go shop and you go live and you go travel. Here we are in a pandemic, and if you want this economy to take off, you got to get people out there again. You got to push a blizzard of emails saying, don't you understand? The pandemic allows us to stay in a crisis. When you stay in a crisis, you can do extraordinary things, like write a check for $6.3 trillion because we're in a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. Are you that cynical?
Yes, absolutely. And I know that no one will answer when will the pandemic be declared over. Like, what are the numbers? What is the threshold? What is the daily hospitalization rate? What is the percentage of the population that's infected with the virus? When we get to those numbers, will you declare it's over? Will people be able to travel without masks? Will restaurants in all of the country be at 100% capacity like they are in Texas? I would rather live in a place where they trust me to take care of myself and my family, as opposed to a place like Oregon, which has like 300 people in the hospital, but they've shut down indoor dining in 15 counties there.
And there's a huge backlash there, right? From the governor starting to shut down again.
Yes.
The American people don't want any part of that. I know legally she couldn't, but the governor of Michigan said, yeah, I'm not shutting down. Cases have dropped since 30%, but when it started surging in the upper Midwest, I think lawmakers know we will not tolerate that. I mean, the India situation is another situation. Brazil is another situation. If our vaccine stays as effective, knowing that we're so quick with a booster shot, do you agree, Kennedy, final thought, that we've done with that?
Yes, and the more people who get vaccinated, the more we can resume something that looks like normalcy. And that is the big X factor here. And it's a massive one that we didn't have 6 months ago. We didn't have it a year ago. We've got it now. So, take advantage of it. Don't be a dum-dum.
I was not normal before the pandemic. Will I be more normal after the pandemic?
Never.
Promise?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to watch you in a half hour.
Woo! Outnumbered. And then my show, Kennedy, on Fox Business. Yeah.
Yes, we're going to do that too on FBN.
Yes.
1-866-408-7669. Call next.
Fox News Radio. On air, online, on demand. The latest news, your favorite talk show hosts, the hottest podcasts, all in one place. America is listening to Fox News. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
What are the most important issues facing Americans today? Every Monday, join me, Brett Baer, chief political anchor and executive editor of Special Report, and my rotating all-star panel of experts as we discuss the policies, practices, and solutions to the biggest and most important issues of the day. You can hear new episodes every Monday. Subscribe now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts.
Fox News, I'm Ann Carrick. Taxing companies more to pay for an expanded version of infrastructure. Senator Tim Scott on CBS's Face the Nation.
America has global competitors whose tax rates are lower than we are right now at 21%. Therefore, by taking it to 28%, you actually rebalance the world against American workers.
Senate Republicans offering a $568 billion infrastructure plan at a quarter of the cost to counter the Biden administration.
Its promise. You didn't see massive investments in R&D. You didn't see wages go up.
He says CEOs now make 320 times what the average worker makes. Combined spending for the Biden administration's American Rescue, Families, and Jobs plans, more than $6 trillion. America's listening to Fox News.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network. Stay on top of the latest news and information from Fox News. Listen and download the Fox News Hourly Update on your time. The trending stories you need anytime you want it. Listen and download now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. The Fox News Rundown is a weekday morning podcast that dives deep into the major and controversial stories of the day. Hosted by the anchors of Fox News Radio. Subscribe now to hear a perspective of news you won't find anywhere else. Listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. Getting back to school.
We're starting to hear about the learning deficit kids will be facing when they go back to in-person learning across the nation. Janice Williams with the YMCA in Washington says that they have already started expanding programs to have kids ages 2 through 13 come in and learn as well as interact with other kids. Also made plans coordinating with schools about expanded summer programs.
We need to be able to offer two families a way so that when school starts in the fall, that we're going to have children that are going to feel comfortable, that they're going to be competent, and they're going to be able to walk into the schools feeling like they are where they need to be and not feel like they are behind. We want to be having children that are thriving, that are happy, that are excited about learning.
Across the country, school systems and states are preparing to expand summer in-person learning with actual school. The concern for educators I talked with is the amount of screen time and lack of interaction with other kids. Getting back to school, Edward Lawrence, Fox News.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
I'm Ben Domenech, publisher of The Federalist, and I'm inviting you to join a new conversation with the smartest thinkers out there about the country and where we're going. It's the Ben Domenech Podcast. You can subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, FoxNewsPodcast.com, or wherever you download your podcasts. This new show will feature deep dive interviews with newsmakers and some of your favorite Fox News analysts. I hope you'll join me. Subscribe to the Ben Domenech Podcast.
Subscribe and listen now by going to FoxNewsPodcasts.com.
This is House Call for Health. A Florida nurse is released from the hospital following a 111-day stay battling coronavirus. Kristen Kay had experienced multiple organ failures and had to be hooked up to a ventilator.
She's had, I think, 75 nurses, 15 different respiratory therapists, 20 plus different doctors, and a couple dozen different support staff and therapists, and they're all just amazing.
Her husband, Steven, says they've been through pretty much every emotion possible.
There were times where we didn't know if she was going to make it, and just, this place has, in a weird way, become home, and the staff here, and she's a miracle, and they saved her life.
She's now in a long-term care facility for an undetermined amount of time to continue recovery, but there she'll have more access to her family and friends. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
They do it so well, and others should take note, as I say.
Well, I know. I think the secret is that they treat it like a job. They understand that their public role is a job. It's a vocation. And with the riches and privilege come a bit of sacrifice as well in terms of your freedom and independence. But they just roll their sleeves up and they're serving the public, and that's why they're so popular.
Totally agree with you, Mark. They know the royal duty. They know what it's about. Unlike Meghan, I don't think she actually, maybe Harry didn't, give her enough help, maybe. She didn't seem prepared for the job. Maybe she thought it was going to be like the red carpet Hollywood, and it's actually hard work. And also, not always that exciting going open in hospitals and doing certain things. They really work hard, William and Kate, and just get through it and smile, and people warm to them. And I think Kate's been particularly graceful. I mean, amazing always, the way she looks, dresses, but the way she is with people, she just doesn't put her hair out of place. But particularly with the recent Meghan Markle interview, I mean, with Meghan saying actually it was Kate that made me cry, and Kate can't answer back, and she knows that that's not her place to answer back. She knows, and Kate can't answer back, and she knows that that's not her place to answer back. She knows what royal means, and that is something very, very special. And I think as a couple, they're magnificent, and I'm, so proud of them. And it's amazing, 10 years, Mark, 10 years of marriage. Usually get the 7-year itch. They've made it to 10 years. Fantastic.
And I think the trick also is to be a tiny bit boring. And I think that they've pulled that off. They're not controversial, are they? They're maybe not the most exciting human beings. And perhaps that's the secret for the royals.
Well, yeah, Mark, you don't want to be making the headlines for the wrong reasons. And we've seen that with Harry and Meghan. These two, maybe possibly some people say a little dull, but they do the job. This is what royals about, and they know what royal duty is about, which is very important. And but you know what they do is magnificent.
Could you put up with it, Lizzie? I mean, could you be a princess? Could you be married to King Charles?
I may well be secretly engaged to a prince. You don't know that, darling.
Never say never.
I've been treated like a princess today on my birthday, I have to say. But I think it's very difficult. Look, I'm friends with Sarah.
Would you do it? Would you make that commitment?
I don't know whether I could do it. Sarah Ferguson, who is a great friend of mine, said how difficult it was. You know, she was told, you know, you think princess in a castle, how wonderful, what little girls dream about. Do you know what? It was a very lonely life. And literally, if she went near the window, she was like, no, you cannot. You have to have the window, you know, curtains pulled, stay away from the windows because people will look up or paparazzi will get you. And she was just sitting in this dark room day after day. And it is a very lonely life. And it's hard. It's tough. There are loads of perks, obviously, and wonderful events. You meet incredible people and you have, you know, wonderful house and all the riches in the world. But it is a very lonely and difficult life. I'm not sure that might be quite up for that mark, to be honest.
No, I think it's... the problem you've got is that it's all right if you're a celebrity because you've got the money to actually escape, but having that public role means that you're owned by the people, aren't you?
Well, that's it. You're owned by the people. You have a duty to the people, and you know the job you're signed up for. When like Sarah married Andrew, she said, I knew the enormity of this. Whether Meghan did or not, maybe not. Maybe there wasn't enough support for Meghan, but I do believe, you know, what if you're going to marry a royal, you know what you're in for. It's a very, very different life. Huge perks, obviously, but your life is never going to be normal. You know, you never... To say you're not able to look out of your window is a weird existence, and sadly a very lonely one. And that's why Sarah, you know, was very fond with Princess Diana, because she understood, and very few people can understand that life.
And Lizzie, well, listen, on a very positive, optimistic note, what are your plans for the bank holiday weekend?
Well, darling, because I've had a little weekend of lots of friends popping in and outdoors activity, as we have to be outdoors, obviously. I'm going to have a little restful day, I think, Mark.
Okay.
Yes.
Little ice pack on your forehead, perhaps?
I think so.
Couple
a little
of paracetamol?
And maybe a little glass
Black
of
coffee?
champagne, hair of the dog.
Full English breakfast?
Well, I am 37, same age as Sunita. I am going to take it easy, darling. I think I deserve it.
Oh, well, you definitely deserve it. Lizzie, happy birthday to you. We love you loads. I get so many wonderful tweets in when you're on air, and it's always a privilege. Let's get you back for the hit list this week on the Drive Time Show. Happy birthday, the wonderful Lizzie Cundy, 21 again, and we'll catch her in a week's time. After this, we're going to have Talk Radio's official snooker correspondent, Bruce from Sheffield.
Online, on DAB, and on the Talk Radio app. Talk Radio.
Champion gamer, box set streamer, or aspiring photographer? What would you do with the powerful iPhone 12 with 5G on Vodafone? Plus 4 times data, 100 gigabytes for the price of 25, all for £55 a month with £29 up front. Go online or in store today. Together we can. Vodafone.
CPI plus 3.9% increase each April. Offer ends 27th of May. Minimum term agreement, 25 gig roam. Fair use, credit check coverage and terms apply. More at vodafone.co.uk.
At Vision Express, all our glasses come with free lifetime servicing.
Free lifetime servicing? Nice one.
And a free 100-day returns guarantee.
Free 100-day returns guarantee? Cracking.
And they start from just £25.
Only £25 and all? Top stuff.
That's why we're proud to say you'll see more for less with Vision Express.
I like it.
Book and shop now at visionexpress.com. Applies to selected styles from the Scene range. Single vision lenses only. See more for less based on perception data January 2021. Terms and
Selling your car can be a tough job, but there's no drama with Motorway. At motorway.co.uk, you can sell your car like a pro. Motorway finds your best offer from a nationwide network of verified dealers. You can get up to £1,000 more than part exchange. Go to motorway.co.uk and sell your car like a pro.
Motorway.co.uk. Did you know that playing the National Lottery raises £30 million for good causes every week? So we all get to enjoy more of this. And plenty of this. Not to mention this. Oh, get in. Ooh, some of this. And a generous helping of this. When we all play a little, fun stuff happens. The National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 18 or over.
Every day, millions of hosts on Airbnb put their extra space to work. Like Jim from North Wales.
Hi, I'm Jim, a farmer and a host on Airbnb. We love welcoming guests from around the world in our 16th century farmhouse. It helps our farm business with an extra source of income, and it gives us a bit of an extra cushion.
Whatever space you have, a farmhouse, a holiday home, or even a flat that's sometimes empty, it could bring you extra income and more flexibility. Visit airbnb.com/host and learn more about what hosting could do for you.
Talk Radio. Traffic and travel.
In Greater Manchester on the M60 anti-clockwise, a lane has been closed off on the entry slip road at junction 1 for Stockport Pyramid following a breakdown. In London, Bessborough Hill, the A312 at Harrow, that is still blocked off in both directions from the junction at Roxeth Hill along to West Street because of a collision. 4 buses are having to reroute, so do expect delays. And on the trains in London for major engineering work today and tomorrow, Euston Station is closed, which means there is no service on the Vanty West Coast or on London North Western into and out of the station. I'm Johnny Ratner.
Okay, so my name is Sam and I'm 13 and I live in Plymouth. Some of my favourite moments with my family are going out for walks, playing games and watching movies together. I really enjoy that.
The little things can mean so much. That's why McCain Helping Family Fund supports 150,000 families with disabled or seriously ill children, like Sam's, so they can enjoy the little moments that matter. McCain and Family Fund. We are family.
Late Nights with Christo on Talk Radio.
This is just going to end up taxing us and cost...
As a financial professional, your clients expect you to know everything about, well, everything. After all, they know there's news about the markets on social media and online. That's everything, right? At Thrivent Asset Management, we help financial professionals gain the clarity they need today to position client portfolios for the potential of tomorrow. It's why the experts who manage the products we offer take an informed, long-term view of investment objectives, and why your clients still come to you for help with their questions. Put Thrivent Asset Management's 50 years of experience to work for them. Together, we can help shape the futures they imagine. Learn more about Thrivent Asset Management at thriventfunds.com/advisor. That's thriventfunds.com/advisor.
Thrivent Asset Management, a division of Thrivent, offers financial professionals a variety of investment products to help meet their clients' needs. Thrivent Distributors, LLC.
О предстоящих парламентских выборах, те рейтинги, которые сейчас опубликованы, говорят о том, что шансы на монобольшинство у госпожи Санду есть, но они невелики, и, скорее всего...
Playing out as one would expect it to play out, right? So, Rudy Giuliani at 6 o'clock in the morning, the FBI busts into the apartment and they take the computers and all that. And then his lawyer's statement says, okay, well, this could have been handled in a much more private way.
He said he offered to hand it over.
Yeah, he said, handle this, sort of diplomatically, and they decided to have, do the search warrant route. And I guess if you issue a search warrant, you have to have reasonable cause to do that. So let's hope that this ends up being something that, you don't want to say let's hope it rises to the level, but let's hope it's above board. And we're just going to have to figure out what happens. But the Hunter Biden thing is also very interesting when you talk about
They left the Hunter Biden laptop and took all the other electronics.
Well, not only that, but also the registering as a foreign agent. So there are a bunch of different parallels between how Republicans are constantly being treated as opposed to Democrats. And we'll just have to wait and see for all the facts to come out. I am still panting. That's how fast I ran down.
Well, a lot of times you're starstruck when you see me. That could be part of it.
Clearly
and just so for your personal note, have the FBI ever broken down your door and stayed for 2 hours?
No, that has never happened to me. Although, I'm feeling like 2021 could be a crazy year.
I'm thinking
So-
it really hasn't been too typical.
Yeah, you never know.
Right.
Masks off, FBI in.
Right.
What's
and
gonna happen?
and when you book Carly, she's coming in at any time, anywhere. It doesn't matter who's on the air. Back in a moment.
Honest commentary, unique opinions, no agenda. It's Brian Kilmeade.
With a Fox Celebrity Profile with Louis Tan and Makad Brooks of Mortal Kombat in theaters and HBO Max.
I can imagine when you sign on, it feels like you're signing on to more than just a movie, considering the scope of this franchise. So, Louis, I'm going to start with you. What did you enjoy most about then bringing a new character to it all?
I recognized when I first signed up on, it was also something that, made me feel cautious about taking the project because you want to make sure that it's done right,
And I saw you've both played the game, obviously. So, Makad, what did that add to your movie-making experience being a fan of it as well?
It's quite an honor, but also, it was a dream come true in the fact that, my 14-year-old or 13-year-old self, wow, I'm Jax. This is crazy. And here I am fighting Sub-Zero. This is crazy. I used to dress up like Scorpion for Halloween, 5 years in a row, to the point of where it was a joke. People were like, let me guess, you're going to be Scorpion, right?
Ashley Dvorkin, Fox News.
This is Fox News Talk.
Headline Rewind.
1983. President Ronald Reagan.
While they preach the supremacy of the state, declare its omnipotence over individual man, and predict its eventual domination of all peoples on the earth, they are the focus of evil in the modern world.
To ignore the great majority of the American public who enjoys rock music is just pure stupidity.
We have a good supply, and Sunshield's closing now. We'll be with you in a minute. That's great, Sally.
Our immediate challenge to this atrocity is to ensure that we make the skies safer and that we seek just compensation for the families of those who were killed.
Never again should a black or Hispanic or woman or Jew, cause of race, religion, or sex be limited or inhibited as we grow. The aristocracy is not the limit, the sky is the limit. Our time has come.
News as it happened then, news as it happens now.
This is Fox News Talk. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
Hey, this is Trey Gowdy, host of the Trey Gowdy Podcast. Every Tuesday, you'll hear what's on my mind, plus where we answer the questions that are on your mind. Make sure to spend your Tuesdays and Thursdays with Trey. Subscribe now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts. Hope to see you.
America's listening to Fox News. From the Fox News Podcasts Network, it's the Fox News Rundown. Start your day with a contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. A daily morning podcast going far beyond the headlines, tapping into the massive reporting resources of Fox News to provide a full picture of the news of the day.
I'm Dana Perino.
I'm Brett Baer.
I'm Jessica Tarlov.
I'm Chris Wallace, and this is the Fox News Rundown. Listen and subscribe now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. This is Fox News Talk.
Headline Rewind.
1977. Criminal Gary Gilmore.
I simply accepted a sentence that was given to me. I've accepted sentences all my life.
By an affirmative vote of a majority of the members of the Board of Pardons of the state of Utah, the death sentence imposed on Gary Gilmore will not be commuted or lessened.
I let the American people down, and I have to carry that burden with me for the rest of my life.
Sam did it through me. He used me. He made me go out there and do it. I did it for him, for blood, so he can have the blood.
In this hour of sorrow of both Tennesseans, the nation, and indeed around the world, the sadness reflects the talent of one of the greatest talents that this country's ever produced, or maybe this world has ever produced.
News as it happened then, news as it happens now.
This is Fox News Talk.
О причастности моей.
Anthony Joshua Award, Tyson Fury. Oh, that'd be good. Now that'd be a good match. Thank you very much, Stuart. Cheers.
in Sheffield for the snooker, and I've got the brilliant Sean Murphy. Hi, Sean. Hello. Congratulations on making the final. Thanks very much. Thank you. Mark Nolan would like to know if he could organise a match for Sport Relief next year, which celebrity would you like to play against? Which celebrity would I like to play against? Well, I think Richard Osman of House of Games. I think he's very keen on the snooker, so he definitely would have the height advantage. But yeah, Richard Osman. Oh, thank you for your time, Sean, and good luck with radio. And I got the brilliant Mark Selby with us. Hi, Mark. Hi, mate. You okay? I'm fine, thank you. Congratulations on getting
You're listening to Bruce in Sheffield doing some great interviews.
But I mean, obviously Stuart played fantastic from start to finish. I just managed to dig in and turn it around at the end. Mark Dolan wants to know if he could organise a snooker tournament for Sport Relief next year, which celebrity would you like to play against? Possibly Jamie Vardy. I know him quite well, and he reckons he's a bit of a player, so probably him. Oh, thank you very much for your time. No problem. Thank you. Mark Dolan on Talk Radio. A good one. I like to watch that. Cheers. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, so I hope I've done you proud.
It's absolutely spectacular 4 and a bit minutes of broadcasting. Wait for this. I mean, literally a full round of applause. The team the other side of the glass are actually blown away. They cannot believe the quality of questions, your delivery, your connection with the interviewee, your ability to pin these people down. Steve Davis, were you starstruck?
Oh, well, yes, because he had popped out to go and get some food in between intervals this afternoon, so he was my last one this afternoon.
Snooker players, are they boring?
They're not, I can assure you. And while I was outside last night until 11:45, there was a guy called Tom. His mum, Fran Walker, is a big fan of yours, and also his dad. And his dad Graham, they're listening tonight. So I said I'll give them a quick mention because they're pleased that Mark Selby's in the final. Because what with Leicester City being in the FA Cup final and then the Leicester Tigers being in the European final.
Well, it's absolutely it could be the treble. So Fran and Graham, God bless you for listening. And who is going to win the final? What, in your professional view, what do you think?
I think it could be Mark. I'll put my hat on the line and say Mark Selby.
It's Selby versus
at the moment.
Mark Selby versus whom?
Sean Murphy.
Right, so Murphy versus Selby. What do you think Selby's got over Murph?
I think he's been in a couple more finals before.
Yes.
So I think
who's better at safety play?
I think probably. I think Murphy looks quite good at his safety play, but we shall see.
And Bruce, I absolutely love snooker. Grew up watching it in the 80s. Dennis Taylor, Stephen Hendry, Steve Davis, Ray Reardon, Terry Griffiths, all those people. What to you is special about snooker?
It's just the way that the players create the atmosphere, and I know that people do say it can be long and boring, but I think the players are just as good now as they were back then, and I just hope. I'm glad I've done you proud.
Oh my God! Those interviews. By the way, I mean, you should be on a retainer. I've been name checked many times. You actually gave me credit for your excellent questions. That seems very unfair.
And do you think Sport Relief will take up the idea next year? I think we should.
They'd be absolutely mad not to. Bruce, make sure, please, that you make yourself free for next Sunday, and we will reveal all next week about your new special role. You're going to be our correspondent for something. All will be revealed next week, and you and I will hatch a plan during the week. And we'll catch you a week's day. The remarkable Bruce from Sheffield, that was his outgoing performance as Talk Radio's official snooker correspondent. Thank you, Bruce. Well done. I'm delighted to say the true legend that is the one, the only Mr. Howard Hughes is up at 10 with The Unexplained. Hi, Howard.
Oh, my God, because it's all seamless. Tim Brooke Taylor joke, probably circa 1970. What do you find on a snooker table and also in a man's trousers. Pockets. Is the answer.
Quality.
Tim Brooke Taylor, 1970. A big edition of The Unexplained Since You Asked, Mark. We're going to be talking about the passing of Michael Collins, astronaut, wonderful man. We'll hear his life story. More big cats, a tomb hidden for 4,000 years, and we'll be revealing all about it. The owner of a haunted house, Canadian UFOs, a parapsychologist, and the afterlife. All that and more on The Unexplained after 10.
Always unmissable, Howard. Thank you so much. Many thanks to Johnny, Rosie, and of course Sarah. And thank you to you for listening. I will see you tomorrow at 4. Howard's next.
On DAB Plus and on the Talk Radio app.
Those restrictions are out of our control. If a country says you're not coming in, that's their rules. It's tough.
Talk Radio.
Hi there, small business owner. Your tiny QuickBooks team here. Just a quick reminder that we take care of calculating and filing your VAT and payroll taxes, which makes it easier for you to
We'll pass it on. Janice Dean, Fox News.
I'm Ashley Dvorkin with a Fox Celebrity Profile with the cast of the new Netflix adventure, The Mitchells vs. the Machines. In the animated film, a dysfunctional family's road trip turns into mayhem when they get caught in the middle of a robot apocalypse. Actress and comedian Maya Rudolph voices the mom, Linda Mitchell. She says the character is based on writer-director Mike Rianda's mother.
And her vocal quality and her enthusiasm and her joie de vivre. I think Linda Mitchell is Mike Rianda's mom. So I was trying really hard to give that to her.
The cast, which includes Abby Jacobson and Beck Bennett, says the animated comedy definitely brings the laughs. And we asked them if humor is something that is innate or learned.
It's a little bit of both. I think it's definitely a natural thing kind of in your bones. Without a doubt, it can be worked on and you can grow with it. I mean, I know that was my case for sure.
I found that the looser I am and the more fun I'm having with it is what makes it work for me.
Ashley Dvorkin, Fox News.
The very latest headlines, along with in-depth analysis and conversation, depend on Fox News Radio and FoxNewsPodcasts.com.
A deadly boat accident off the Southern California coast. I'm Joe Chiro, Fox News. At least 2 people were dead after a boat carrying more than 24 people overturned. Authorities say 23 people were hospitalized after they were pulled from the water off Point Loma near the Cabrillo Monument near San Diego. Border Patrol sources tell Fox News they believe the vessel could have been carrying migrants. An anti-Asian hate rally in New York City today in response to an increase in the number of hate crimes against Asian Americans. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer spoke.
We want to tell those evil few who propagate that Asian, you are not Americans, and under the new law we passed, we will prosecute you and give you the punishment you deserve.
The federal COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, which passed the U.S. Senate, is expected to be voted on by the House this week. President Biden this week with more plans to sell his spending proposals.
Republicans say they're concerned with more than the price tag and monetary policy. They argue that the new role the federal government would play would really be changed in an expanded bureaucracy. Still, though, some Republicans say they are interested in negotiating with the White House. There are some indications that some Republicans could be heading to the White House to meet with the president. We also are going to be getting an update from the president about where things stand with the pandemic, with vaccinations. The same day, the U.S. is set to impose new travel restrictions between the U.S. and India.
Fox's Mark Meredith. President Biden will travel to New Orleans and Lake Charles, Louisiana later this week to promote his jobs plan. A runoff for the 6th District U.S. House seat in Texas is set between Republican Susan Wright, whose husband was the first member of Congress to die from COVID-19, and Republican Jake Ellzey. America is listening to Fox News.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network. Stay on top of the latest news and information from Fox News. Listen and download the Fox News Hourly Update on your time. The trending stories you need anytime you want it. Listen and download now by going to FoxNewsPodcasts.com. From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
What are the most important issues facing Americans today? Every Monday, join me, Brett Baer, Chief Political Anchor and Executive Editor of Special Report, and my rotating all-star panel of experts as we discuss the policies, practices, and solutions to the biggest biggest and most important issues of the day. You can hear new episodes every Monday. Subscribe now at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you download podcasts.
The Fox News Rundown is a weekday morning podcast that dives deep into the major and controversial stories of the day. Hosted by the anchors of Fox News Radio. Subscribe now to hear a perspective of news you won't find anywhere else. Listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com.
President Biden is pushing Congress to approve police reform laws.
He wants a police reform bill honoring George Floyd enacted by the one-year anniversary of Floyd's death later this month. Minnesota Republican Pete Stauber says,
"We've come to some really, really good, what I think is compromise."
Stauber, a former police officer, is among a small bipartisan group trying to find consensus on competing police reform proposals from Republicans and Democrats.
We're going to make police departments even better.
But differences remain, most notably over qualified immunity, a legal shield for individual officers many Democrats say should be revoked. In Washington, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
A new survey of critical care nurses shows the COVID-19 pandemic has left them tired and stressed.
Nurses, especially those working in ICUs and taking care of patients with severe COVID-19, could just be worn out from the work. A survey from Ohio State University's Nursing College says that while critical care nursing was already a stressful job, more nurses are even more stressed now. 2 out of 5 report they are depressed, more than half say they're suffering from anxiety, and 6 out of 10 believe their own health to be poor. The survey is being published in the American Journal of Critical Care. Evan Brown, Fox News.
Horse trainer Bob Baffert is still relishing in the Kentucky Derby win of his horse Medina Spirit, a record 7th time for Baffert, and he's already planning the next race for his horse.
I got a call from Pimlico, where they run the Preakness in Maryland, and they invited us to the crown.
It was a 4th Derby win for jockey Johnny Velasquez. I'm Joe Chiro, Fox News.
I'm Chris Wallace. President Biden makes a dramatic break with the past 4 decades in Washington, calling for a new era of big government.
We've got a lot more to do. That's why I proposed the American Jobs Plan.
The president proposes spending trillions of dollars on health care and child care, community colleges, and infrastructure.
The once-in-a-generation investment in America.
We'll sit down with one of the president's top economic advisors, Cecilia Rouse, a member of his family's cabinet, only on Fox News Sunday. Then,
these plans aren't about creating options and flexibility for Americans. They're about imposing a vision.
Republicans argue the Biden plan will drive the economy down and inflation up. We'll talk with Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy, a member of the Gang of 10, trying to find common ground in the Senate. Plus,
hear me clearly. America is not a racist country.
Senator Tim Scott's comments spark a fierce debate as Republicans take on a proposed curriculum for the nation's schools. We'll ask our Sunday panel about the new culture war in education. And our Power Player of the Week, the first college athlete to make money off her personal brand. All right now on Fox News Sunday. And hello again from Fox News in Washington. It was 40 years ago when Ronald Reagan told the nation, government is not the solution to our problem, government is the problem. Ever since, presidents, both Republicans and even Democrats, have played down the role of big government. Until now. President Biden is pushing $4 trillion in new spending and almost that much in new taxes. What happens to his plans over the next few months will tell us a lot about where our nation is headed. In a moment, we'll speak with one of the president's top economic advisors, Cecilia Rouse. But first, let's turn to Mark Meredith in Wilmington, Delaware, with the latest on prospects for the president's ambitious plans. Mark.
Chris, President Biden insists the country can afford to spend trillions and trillions of dollars, but Republicans are upset with more than just the price tag here. They argue the White House is trying to expand government bureaucracy for decades to come.
We're way behind the rest of the world right now.
President Biden says if the U.S. is to compete globally, Congress should spend trillions of dollars rebuilding roads, fighting climate change, and addressing poverty.
Certain things only the government can do. We rank number 8 in the world in terms of infrastructure, for God's sake.
On top of infrastructure spending, the White House wants an additional $1.8 trillion to fund universal preschool, 2 free years of community college, and more unemployment benefits. Republicans argue it's all a ploy to increase the government's role in Americans' daily lives.
As government expands, our liberty contracts.
I think many of these programs are designed to make the middle class dependent on government.
Even some Democrats, including West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, are raising concerns with the growing price tag of the president's proposals. Still, the White House believes a deal with a closely divided Congress is possible. The president plans to sit down with congressional leaders from both parties at the White House later this month.
While Congress negotiates this week, President Biden's going to be back out on the road trying to convince taxpayers to support these spending plans. He's going to be making stops in Virginia and Louisiana this week. Chris?
Mark Meredith traveling with the president in Delaware. Mark, thank you. And joining us now, Cecilia Rouse, chair of the President's Council of Economic Advisors. Ms. Rouse, let's start by putting President Biden's plans in historical context. Adjusting for inflation, the programs passed during the New Deal cost $856 billion. Recovery from the Great Recession in 2009 cost $1.8 trillion. But in just over 100 30s.
Well, thank you, Chris. Let's be clear. The first part of what President Biden was spending is the American Rescue Plan. We're in an economic recession caused by a pandemic, and that was critical support, which went to families and businesses to help them get to the other side of the pandemic. And even more important, it provided the funding for an effective and comprehensive vaccination rollout. It's because of those shots in the arms, it's because of the support that families and businesses have had that we've started to see our economy come back. Last week's numbers suggest our growth in the first quarter increased by about 6%. We see that unemployment insurance claims are coming down. So the first tranche of that was to get us to the other side of the pandemic. The other two parts are about investing in our future. To put the spending in context is in the last 40 years, we've been disinvesting from our economy. And so what these plans do is we put money into the foundations of growth. Those are infrastructure. Families need in order to be able to go to work, because allowing workers to go to work, increasing our labor supply, is also critically important for sustaining our economy and ensuring we remain the most competitive economy in the world.
But you take my point. It's 6 times what we spent in the New Deal. It's 3 times what we spent for the Great Recession. And you point out where the economy is right now. I want to take a look at that because the economy is doing pretty well. Let's put up the numbers. GDP in the first quarter rose, as you said, at an annual rate of 6.4%. The unemployment rate has dropped from a pandemic high of 14.7% now to 6%. And the Federal Reserve is keeping short-term interest rates near zero. With things going so well, why not trust the private sector to do its job and to keep the economy growing, people to get jobs, and get the country back on its way? To do it by the private sector, not the public sector.
So, Chris, first of all, this is not even either or. But those numbers reflect that we're just starting to come out of this recession. The numbers look eye-popping because of what we call base effects, because they were so very low last year. But we're not done yet. Next week, we will also get an employment report. I expect to see robust job gains, but I also expect we're going to remind ourselves that we're still 7 or 8 million jobs down from where we were this time last year. So we are definitely on the move. This is an economy that's recovering. We are leading the world in that recovery, but we're not done yet.
Part of this, I think, Ms. Rouse, is a basic philosophical argument about what kind of a country we want to be. Here is Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell this week. Take a look.
Behind President Biden's familiar face, it's like the most radical Washington Democrats have been handed the keys. And they're trying to speed as far left as they can possibly go before American voters ask for the car back.
President Biden is saying that he wants government to pay for child care. He wants government to pay for preschool, and not just for the poor, but for the middle class. And it'll be government that picks winners and losers. Is that the kind of country we want to have, Ms. Rouse?
We want to have a country that has robust growth, that is widely shared, and that is innovating for the future. What we're proposing here are for government to step in places where we know the private sector doesn't do so well. For example, I think we're the envy of the world in the speed with which the vaccinations, specifically those by Pfizer and Moderna, were developed and rolled out in the past year. That was breathtaking. It's the reason why we're on path to get out of this pandemic-induced recession. The basic research that was the backbone of those vaccine developments was funded by the government. We know that when it comes to risky investments, the private sector will not make them. We know that when it comes to goods where the private sector can't recoup all of the returns, the private sector doesn't fully invest. So the strategy here is to really create a partnership between the public sector and the private sector, where for both sides to be making the investments that make most sense, so that we can really increase growth. We know that the investments, when the government invests in research, that crowds in the private sector. The private sector then builds on top of that and makes even further investments. This is not either or, this is both and.
So there's not only a big disagreement about the spending part of the Biden plan, there's also a sharp disagreement about how you're going to pay for it. I want to put up the combined U.S. corporate tax rates. And when I say combined, both the federal tax rates and the state corporate tax rates. Take a look at this. As it stands now, with the Trump tax cuts, the U.S. is in the middle of industrial nations at 25.8%. But with the tax hike that President Biden is proposing, the U.S. corporate tax rate would once again be the highest in the industrial world at 32.3%. Ms. Rouse, how can you argue that that isn't going to hurt U.S. competitiveness in the corporate sphere? How can you argue that that isn't going to drive some U.S. businesses overseas?
Well, I would say two things here. First is that President Biden fundamentally believes that government can be very effective, is important, and that we all need to pay our fair share. And what we've seen over the past several decades is that the wealthiest Americans, the big corporations, are getting wealthier, and they're contributing less in terms of federal revenue. So the first point is to ensure that everybody pays their fair share, not to increase taxes on the middle class, so not to increase taxes on anybody making less than $400,000 a year. The second point is the corporate tax rate is really being proposed to not even go back to where it was in 2017, just to have an increase. And I think what we can also see is that with the tax cuts that happened in 2017, when we reduced the corporate tax rates so dramatically, we have not seen a similar increase in investment and in corporate competitiveness. So President Biden is really saying, look, everyone should pay their fair share. And yes, internationally, we don't want to be disadvantaged. So he's also working with other countries so that we have a minimum tax internationally, so that there's not a race to the bottom, which doesn't help the country.
Don't you think that we're going to be less competitive if have the highest corporate tax rate in the world as opposed to in the middle of the industrial world? Doesn't that just necessarily say we become less competitive?
So we don't, of course, we don't want to hamper U.S. competitiveness. To the contrary, the idea is to ensure that corporations are paying their fair share, to button up some of the loopholes which have meant that corporations were actually putting more money offshore, off of the U.S. soil, and having a global minimum tax, so that we're working with our trading partners, working with the rest of the world, so that corporations are paying their fair share worldwide. We do not want to be hampering corporations, but we do want to ensure that they're paying their fair share as well.
Then there is inflation. Former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, who was an advisor both to President Bill Clinton and to Barack Obama, says this, and let's put it up. There are already labor shortages in food services and retail. We're already seeing spikes in the price of lumber and housing. And I can add to that, we're also seeing spikes in the price of meat. Spending that we're not going to have a new round of overheating the economy and serious inflation.
these are very serious concerns, and we know that coming out of an extremely deep recession, that there are going to be bumps along the way. So we expect that there have been supply chain disruptions that will cause some transitory increases in prices. We know that there are some places where employers are struggling to find workers because, let's face it, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. Some workers would like to go back to work, but they don't have childcare, their schools are not open, and the pandemic is still out of control in certain parts of our country. So when we get to the other side of this pandemic, I fully expect that our labor market will come back and be flourishing. That said, we do expect some transitory price increases. The Fed expects that as well. We do not see evidence that at the moment that those are have become what we call de-anchored, so that we expect runaway inflation. But that said, we know we have to be vigilant, and we are watching the data. But for the time being, we expect at most transitory inflation. That is what we expect coming out of a big recession.
I have less than a minute left. I want to ask you one strategy question. There are reports that the president is willing to break up, particularly the infrastructure plan, into chunks to get at least some of it passed with bipartisan support, and that Senate Democrats are saying slow, steady, and piecemeal. As a matter of strategy, is the president willing to break infrastructure into various pieces, and overall, is he willing to settle for considerably less than the $2.25 trillion?
What the president has said is what's really important is that we act now, that inaction is not an option. And so he is willing to work with Congress. He's open to many ideas, but he believes fundamentally we need to be making these kinds of investments in our country. We need to be, stoking and supporting the kind of innovation that we need in order to address existential threats such as climate change. Right. We need to be investing in our people, and we need to be rebuilding infrastructure. So the president has said we need to be making these investments. We've been disinvesting over the past 40, 50 years. What's not an option is action, and he's open to working with all members of Congress to make that happen.
Ms. Russ, thank you. Thanks for your time. Please come back. Up next, we'll get reaction from Republican Senator Bill Cassidy, a member of a bipartisan group in Congress trying to reach a compromise.
House Call for Health, a coronavirus side effect that can only be seen through a mammogram. Denver breast surgeon Dr. Stephanie Miller says for some, it appears the COVID vaccines make lymph nodes larger.
So far in the early observations, we think this is about 15% of women can have enlargement of their lymph nodes.
Dr. Miller believes the COVID-19 vaccine lymph node side effect is not unexpected, but stresses the vaccine will not lead to breast cancer. Maybe just some confusion.
Is this just the normal reaction from the COVID vaccine, or are we finding a new breast cancer?
If enlarged lymph nodes are found, don't be surprised if a follow-up appointment is scheduled just in case. Dr. Miller adds patients may try scheduling mammograms before being inoculated if possible, or wait 4 to 6 weeks after completing the vaccine schedule. But she does worry any delay could lead to people not getting their mammograms as often as they should. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. This is House Call for Health. A Florida nurse is released from the hospital following a 111-day stay battling coronavirus. Kristen Kay had experienced multiple organ failures and had to be hooked up to a ventilator.
She's had, I think, 75 nurses, 15 different respiratory therapists, 20 plus different doctors, and a couple dozen different support staff and therapists, and they're all just amazing.
Her husband, Steven, says they've been through pretty much every emotion possible.
There were times where we didn't know if she was going to make it, and just this place is, in a weird way, become home, and the staff here, and she's a miracle, and they saved her life.
She's now in a long-term care facility for an undetermined amount of time to continue recovery, but there, she'll have more access to her family and friends. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
Hey,
it's Brett Larson, inviting you to download and listen to the new daily Fox on Tech podcast. There's part of a colorful late 90s iMac on Mars. It's an idea that seems a lot like Kickstarter called Build It. This isn't the first time we've heard about North Korea hackers trying to get a leg up on COVID-19, a range that was used for satellite TV service in the 70s. Get the latest trends in technology, cybersecurity alerts, and gadget news daily. Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Connect to Fox News Audio on the Fox News app. Listen to hear your favorite hosts like Brian Kilmeade, Jimmy Fallon, and Guy Benson standing up for what's right, live and via podcast. Just click listen, then swipe right and hear the latest news updates on your time. And scroll down to hear the latest podcasts from Fox News. And it's even easier to listen in the car with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Get programming alerts and notifications. Fox News Audio is on the Fox News app. The voices America trusts. Download it now.
President Biden says he's prepared to compromise on his big new government programs. But is that possible, considering he and Republicans are trillions of dollars apart? Joining us now from Louisiana, Bill Cassidy, a member of the Gang of 10 Senate Republicans looking for a deal. Senator, you just heard my conversation with Cecilia Rouse. Your reaction?
There's a lot in there which is easily disputed. She talks about big government being essential to vaccine development. Pfizer did not take federal dollars, for example, to get that vaccine. It was the Trump administration and Congress giving regulatory flexibility. I would argue the era of bigger government coming back will thwart the progress we need to make. And I think we can see recent history about how that is exactly true.
But let's look, though, at some of the key provisions in the president's jobs plan and in his family's plan. And I want to put them up on the screen. $100 billion for workforce development. $400 billion to care for the elderly and disabled. $225 billion for child care. And $200 billion for free preschool. Senator, which of those programs that I just put up, which of those programs do you think people in your state don't need?
Every one of those programs should be evaluated. If it's important, it should be advanced. It's not infrastructure. When people say, wait a second, I like this because we need a new bridge across the Calcasieu River in Lake Charles, I'm saying this plan will not give it to you. The amount of spending for roads and bridges is so low that, and split between 50 states over 5 years, you're not going to get your bridge. Now, we may need this. By the way, we just are restarting our bipartisan working group to come at family support for the dependent, children and elderly. But that is not going to give you a road and bridge, and that's what people in my state would really like to see.
Yeah, but I guess the question is, and you know, we could argue, and I have back and forth with both sides about infrastructure, but there are a lot of programs that aren't infrastructure, and the question I'm asking you is, would you support the government paying for them? I mean, I looked into it. In your state of Louisiana, the rate of child poverty is 25%. 1 in 4 of the children in Louisiana are in poverty, and according to the White House, 42% of residents in Louisiana do not have access to child care. So wouldn't they benefit, forget whether it's infrastructure or not, wouldn't they benefit from these government programs?
So I don't know if they would. If you think about the main driver of elevating out of poverty, it's good education. Now, what we saw in the pandemic was teachers' unions keeping schools shut, even when the Centers for Disease Control said it was safe to go back. The president wants to give universal pre-K, run by the same teachers' unions. Now, if you're in Chicago and there's more money going to the school systems and to the unions, and yet they still won't open, not because the CDC says it's not safe, but because they don't want to, your kids are not going to have a better education. They're just not. So whether or not these programs benefit those who need it, we don't know, because it's going through a system which is so poorly served these same folks we wish to help.
As I talked about with Ms. Rouse, there's not only a disagreement about spending, there's also a disagreement about how you're going to pay for it. And one of the main Republican objections to the Biden plan is it would undo much of the Trump tax cuts. But I want to take a look at those tax cuts. According to the Tax Policy Center, the average first-year tax cut for a household making less than $25,000 The average tax cut was just $60. The average tax cut for a household making $3.4 million was $193,000. And contrary to talk that it will pay for itself, the Trump tax cuts are now projected to add $1.5 trillion to the deficit over 10 years. Senator, of the 2 million tax filers in Louisiana, only 14,000 of them were paying more, filing gross income of more than $500,000. So what's wrong with raising
like that? It sounds just like President Biden speaking to Congress. And I'm not accusing you, I'm just pointing that out. If you look at the overall effect, the aspiration of this Biden administration is to return to the economy we had before COVID, where we had record low unemployment, which means record high employment for African Americans, veterans, women, Hispanics, the disabled.